The room is quiet now, but somewhere in 1,000 different cities, 1,000 different screens are glowing with the same demand. Speak louder, post more, perform harder. Be seen, be heard, be everything all at once all the time. And you, sitting there, feeling the low hum of exhaustion behind your eyes, you have started to wonder if there is something wrong with you. Because you are not loud. Because you do not perform. Because when the room fills with noise, something in you pulls back, retreats, watches from the edges. And the world has told you, again and again, that this retreat is weakness. I want you to consider just for a moment that everything you have been told about this is wrong. In a world that won't stop talking, your silence isn't a weakness, it is a strategic fortress. We have been conditioned, carefully, systematically, to believe that loud dominance wins, that the microphone belongs to whoever shouts into it first. But Carl Jung spent his life staring into the architecture of the human psyche, and what he found there suggests something far more unsettling, far more powerful. Your quietest traits, the ones you have been ashamed of, the ones you have tried to sand down and hide, are not deficiencies. They are dormant weapons. Today, we are going to walk into the parts of yourself you have been taught to abandon, and we are going to find out what has been waiting there, this entire time, for you to come home, settle in. Let your shoulders drop, just slightly, from wherever they have been holding tension, without your permission, because what I am about to show you cannot be understood with a tense mind. It requires the kind of stillness you already possess, even if you don't yet recognize it as a gift. Let's begin where all illusions begin. With the performance, picture the modern digital arena. Not a coliseum of stone, but of glass and light, screens stacked upon screens, each one a stage. In this arena, in this year, in this exact moment of history, there is an unspoken law. Attention is currency, and currency must be earned through spectacle. The algorithm does not reward depth, it rewards volume. It rewards the sharpest angle, the loudest reaction, the face contorted into the most extreme expression of joy or rage or outrage, because extremity travels faster than nuance ever could. And so an entire generation has learned, without ever being taught explicitly, that to exist is to perform, and to perform is to survive. Watch closely now. Watch the pattern beneath the pattern. Every day, millions of people wake up and put on a mask before they have even opened their eyes fully. The mask of confidence. The mask of certainty. The mask of a life curated into highlight reels, a personality inflated to fill whatever space the feed demands. This is what Jung would have called the persona, the social mask we construct to navigate the world, the face we show so the world does not see what lies beneath it. But here is the part they never tell you. A mask worn long enough begins to fuse with the skin beneath it. The performance becomes indistinguishable from the self. And the cost of this fusion is a particular kind of exhaustion that has no name in most languages, a bone-deep depletion that sleep cannot fix, because it is not the body that is tired. It is the soul, worn thin from being someone it was never meant to be. You have felt this. Somewhere in your life, you have felt the strange, hollow fatigue that comes after performing enthusiasm you did not feel, after speaking loudly to fill a silence that frightened you, after forcing your energy outward when everything in you was asking to turn inward instead. That fatigue is not a malfunction. It is information. It is your psyche sending a signal from somewhere deep and old, telling you that the noise is not your nature. Now, I want you to notice something happening as you listen to this. A recognition perhaps, a quiet exhale. Because somewhere inside you, you already knew this. You have always known this. And knowing it, even for a moment, changes something. While the loud persona burns itself out on stage, chasing an audience that will forget it by tomorrow's scroll, there is another part of the psyche that Jung mapped with obsessive precision, a part he called the shadow. Not evil, not monstrous, though we have been taught to fear it as such. The shadow is simply everything we have exiled from our conscious self-image because it did not fit the performance we were told to give. And here is the revelation that will unsettle you in the best possible way. Your quietness, your introspection, your reluctance to perform, your discomfort with the loud arena, these traits have very often been shoved into the shadow too. Not because they are shameful, but because a world addicted to volume has no room for them on stage. Think about that. The very trait you have spent years apologizing for, softening, trying to override with forced extroversion and performative confidence, may in fact be one of the most concentrated reservoirs of power you possess, sitting untouched in the dark because nobody ever taught you it was allowed to come into the light. This is the moment I want you to feel in your body, not just understand with your mind. Close your eyes if you can, even for 3 seconds. Picture a locked room inside a house you have lived in your whole life. You walk past that door every day. You have never opened it. Not because it's dangerous, but because someone once told you, long ago, that what's inside doesn't belong in a house like this one. What if I told you that room contains something you have needed this entire time? The attention economy of this era did not invent human insecurity. It simply found the oldest wound in the collective psyche, the fear of not being seen, and industrialized it. It built machines that reward the performance of visibility while punishing anyone who dares to simply exist without spectacle. But visibility and power are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. A candle in a dark room draws every eye toward it. But it is the darkness itself, vast, patient, unlit, that holds everything the candle cannot illuminate. The loud voice fills a room, the quiet mind maps it. This is what I call the quiet edge. Not the absence of strength, but strength that has not yet learned to announce itself. It is the strategic advantage hiding inside every trait you have been told to correct. Your observation before reaction. Your listening before speaking. Your stillness in rooms that demand noise. In an increasingly loud and fractured digital world, where everyone is shouting to be heard and almost no one is truly listening. The person who can sit in silence, who can withhold, who can observe without needing to perform their observations, becomes something rare, something the noise cannot categorize, something frankly the noise fears. Because the loud world knows how to compete with other loud things, what it does not know how to do is compete with silence. Silence does not play by its rules. Silence cannot be outshouted because it was never trying to be heard in the first place. And there is a peculiar magnetic gravity to a person who does not need the room's approval to feel whole. You have met people like this. You may not have consciously registered why they unsettled you, in the way that gravity itself is invisible until you feel yourself pulled toward the center of something larger. I want you to sit with this next thought, because it is the hinge on which everything we discuss today will turn. The parts of you that you have spent your whole life trying to hide, apologize for, or perform your way out of, are not obstacles standing between you and power. They may be the very shape of your power, still folded, still waiting, like a blade sheath so long you forgot it could cut. We are only beginning to open that locked door. Stay with me here, because what waits on the other side of that door is not comfortable. It was never meant to be comfortable. Growth, real growth, the kind that reorganizes the architecture of who you are, never arrives wearing the costume of comfort. It arrives disguised as confrontation. And the first thing you must confront is the true nature of the mask you have been wearing. Jung believed that the persona, that curated social self, was necessary. A civilization cannot function if every raw impulse is expressed without filter. But he also warned, with the gravity of a man who had stared into the abyss of his own psyche and lived to write about it, that identifying too completely with the persona is a kind of quiet death. You stop being a person who wears a mask. You become the mask, hollow behind the eyes, performing a life instead of living one. And the tragedy is that most people never notice the transition. It happens gradually, the way a river erodes stone, imperceptible day to day, until one morning you look in the mirror and do not recognize the tired stranger staring back. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it, not for me, but for yourself, in the silence of your own mind. When was the last time you spoke not to fill a silence, but because the words themselves demanded to exist? When was the last time you sat in a room full of people and said nothing, not out of fear, but out of the quiet confidence that your silence was already saying everything that needed to be said? If you cannot remember, that is not a failure. That is simply the depth of the conditioning we are working to unravel today. Now let's go deeper into the shadow itself, because to use it as a weapon, you must first understand its true architecture. The shadow is not a pit of monsters. That is the childish, cartoonish version we have inherited from stories that needed a villain. The real shadow is far stranger and far more valuable. It is the storehouse of everything you decided, consciously or not, did not belong in your presentation to the world. And here is the part almost no one tells you. The shadow does not only contain your darkness. It contains your unclaimed light too. Talents you buried because they made others uncomfortable. Instincts you silenced because they didn't match the performance expected of you. Power you disowned because claiming it felt, somehow, dangerous. Think of a child who is naturally observant, naturally quiet, naturally more comfortable watching a room than commanding it. That child grows up surrounded by voices insisting that confidence means volume, that success means being the loudest person in every negotiation, every meeting, every relationship. So the child learns to override its nature. It forces itself to speak first, to fill silences it finds sacred, to perform an extroversion that drains it hollow by the end of every single day. And the quiet perceptiveness, the natural gift for reading a room before speaking into it, gets pushed down into the shadow where it waits. Not gone, never gone. Simply waiting for permission. This is the strange mechanics of the psyche that Jung mapped so carefully. What we repress does not disappear. It goes underground, and from underground it begins to exert a gravitational pull on everything we do, usually without our conscious awareness. You feel its pull as anxiety in loud rooms, as exhaustion after forced performance, as a persistent nagging sense that the life you are living does not quite fit the person you actually are, like a coat cut for someone else's shoulders. But here is where the revelation turns, where the weakness becomes the weapon. The moment you stop fighting your quiet nature and instead turn toward it, study it, integrate it consciously into how you move through the world, something shifts. The energy you were spending to suppress your quietness, to override your natural stillness, to perform a louder version of yourself, that energy becomes available again. It floods back into you like blood returning to a limb that had fallen asleep, and in that flood is the raw material of genuine, undiluted power. Consider how this plays out in the rooms where real decisions are made. Not the performative stages of social media, but the boardrooms, the negotiations, the quiet conversations where fortunes and futures are actually decided. In these rooms, the person who speaks least often speaks with the most weight, because scarcity creates value, and a person who is not compulsively filling every silence with noise has trained the room, without ever announcing it, to lean in when they finally do speak. Their words carry the density of consideration behind them. Meanwhile, the person who has been performing confidence through volume the entire meeting has already spent their currency. Nobody leans in for the 20th interjection. Everybody leans in for the first word spoken by someone who has been quietly, patiently observing. This is not manipulation. I want to be precise here because the line matters. This is not about performing a calculated silence to trick a room into respecting you. That would simply be another mask, another persona. And personas built on strategy rather than truth eventually collapse under their own weight. What we are describing is something different. It is the integration of a trait you already possess, a trait you have been ashamed of, back into your identity as a source of legitimate strength. When your stillness is authentic rather than strategic, when it comes from a genuine comfort with silence rather than a performed withholding, it carries a different frequency entirely. People feel the difference even if they cannot articulate it. The nervous system reads authenticity the way it reads danger, instantly beneath conscious thought. And this is where the quiet edge reveals its full shape. It is not about becoming louder in disguise. It is not about learning to fake extroversion more convincingly. It is about the radical, almost rebellious act of allowing your natural quietness to stand fully in the light, unapologized for, unmasked, integrated. In a culture that mistakes noise for confidence and performance for authenticity, the person who has done this internal work becomes almost impossible to read using the shallow metrics everyone else is using. You cannot outshout someone who was never trying to compete in your arena. You cannot exhaust someone who has stopped spending energy pretending to be someone they are not. Feel that settle into you for a moment. Notice if some part of you just relaxed slightly, some old tension in the jaw or the shoulders that has been holding a performance for longer than you realized. Because what we're really talking about, beneath the language of strategy and power, is coming home to yourself. And coming home, real coming home, is always quiet. It never announces itself with fireworks. It arrives the way dusk arrives, gradually, gently. And then all at once you notice the light has changed entirely, and you are standing somewhere you have not stood in a very long time. Yourself, unguarded, unmasked, and far more powerful than the performance ever was. The door is open now. What waits beyond it is not darkness to fear, but a version of you that has been waiting patiently, in the quiet, for exactly this moment to step forward.